Happy Friday. I hope everyone has had a good week. I woke up feeling like I had died, and suddenly I'm feeling a lot better. So I'm happy. I've got my hair done. My dog is saying hello. Everyone say hi, Saya. Hi, sweetie. Okay, so I planned on doing this vlog. Do you want to see her? Look, there she is. No, Saya. Okay. Anyway, I planned on doing this vlog 2 days ago, but I got so far behind with word count again that I needed to focus on writing. So here I am, Friday, feeling slightly better. I think we're excited. You're so big. So today we're going to cover the fun topic of why I don't translate all the Czech words. I think I get this question a lot, like a lot. Now, the answer is fairly simple, and I realize now I should have grabbed the other books, and all I have is Kiss of Fire. And excuse the old cover, it's actually all I have at my house. I don't know why. I have the new cover, but they're all at A.M. Hargrove's house, which is in South Carolina, so I can't see them. But anyway, okay, so I have one copy of the book, and I realized I should have grabbed the other ones, but this has a good example, so we're gonna stick with this. All right, so Czech. I don't speak Czech. We'll start with saying that. I actually chose Czech. I mean, you saw my little video with the fish because of that little souvenir that a cute girl that I had worked with previously gave me. And, you know, I think it had some symbolism and it was fun. And I loved the way the language sounded. Like, I really fell in love with it. And I do, my daughter is taking ballet at a studio that's very Russian-based, which is fairly common. But a lot of the students and their families were from Russia and Yugoslavia, you know, all those places, and the way that their voices sound is just so gorgeous. Just fell in love with it. So that's a lot why I chose Czech. When I originally wrote the books, because it was just for my grandfather, just for a gift, I used Google Translate to do all of the translations, which is why in the original copies they were so wrong. And I got a lot of emails saying, well, I speak Czech or I understand Czech, and this doesn't say that. And so we actually spent the last 6 months retranslating everything. So on all of the new ebooks and all of the new paperbacks, oh, this is glittery, they are correct. So if you have an old paperback, even this one, it's not going to be correct. They're all going to be slightly different than what they are now. So, and it's funny because, I mean, as it's speaking American English, and even I think British, anyway, English in general, like I said, I'm still not 100%, but we don't have feminine, masculine like they do in other languages, and so in my head, I always forget that that's an issue, and so there's words that are wrong that I can't change, like Silny is actually the masculine version as opposed to the feminine version, but I can't change it because, well, there's 200,000 of you who have read the books. So changing it now may cause problems. So, I mean, some of the things like that we've changed, but other things like Alien Song, we made that correct so that the words were proper when read from someone who speaks Czech natively or anything like that. And then just the regular day-to-day conversation. Now, so it's kind of like a background on the Czech, but we're still getting into the why I don't translate it. Kiss Fire. It's from Jocelyn's point of view. If it's a first person, so as you're reading it, you're reading from Jocelyn's mind, you know, in her, as if she's written it herself. Now, Jocelyn, if you're aware, does not speak Czech. She doesn't understand it. So because I come from a theater background, and as I write, everything feels very, like in my head, it's very film and theater and how you would want to see it done. So when I am writing, and I'm writing as Jocelyn, I'm not going to put a translation in there because she doesn't understand it. And I've actually heard from some of the people who do speak Czech that that it kind of ruined some of the story for them because they understood the language, like they got it. My example that I'm going to give you here is in Kiss of Fire. On the paperback, it's page 133. It's like right at the beginning of, and I just saw this, chapter 12. Now, I'm going to tell you right where it's at. They're in Ellie and Wynn's apartment watching Night of the Living Vampire. So, and they finished the movie and they're trashing it and Wynn's getting all crabby. And I'm not going to say the Czech, so I'm going to mess up if I say it aloud. And I don't normally read my books, so bear with me. Okay. So I ducked back down to my Mongolian beef and tried to focus on the movie. Even though I had seen it a million times, it was still one of my favorites. You need to be nice to her, Alien. She's my friend, and if you scare her away, I'll never forgive you. Fine, fine, he said, and then he goes off in Czech. And it says, the words fell off of his tongue like diamonds and pearls. I looked over at him, taken by the beautiful sound. It had seemed familiar in my ears, even though I had no idea what language it was. Ilian, Wynne pleaded. Ilian stood before walking down the hall to the bathroom. What language was that? Czech. It's his home language. It's beautiful, I sighed. Do you understand it? Enough to understand when he's being rude, Wynne said. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to put it up so you can see what it actually says. Because like I said, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. But obviously, that's Czech. What he says, and I know a lot of you highlight because it comes up on Amazon as to what's being highlighted. Most of the Czech is very regularly highlighted. It actually says, what does it matter? She'll be living with us in 2 weeks anyway. Now, this is one of the prime examples as to why I don't translate them. Not only does Jocelyn not understand it, but with something like that, it ruins the story. Because and reading it from her point of view, you don't understand what's going on. And then suddenly when he's saving her and they're going off and all these great things, that language, I mean, it's not necessary at that point. And for Jocelyn, it's not necessary at all. There's a part in Eyes of Ember in the very beginning that when Ilian gives Jocelyn the shoes and he goes off, and what he says is actually quite gorgeous. But from Jocelyn's point of view, in that moment, that's not important for her to know. I think going back and reading it again as a reader, I think you can know that. And I think it's okay. But when you're right there in the moment, when you're reading it for the first time, when you're Jocelyn, she doesn't understand it. And even if you think about it this way, if Jocelyn was to go back and read her story, I'm not even sure she would understand or remember what was said, because it's been so long ago and the language was foreign to her that she wouldn't remember the exact words or what they were. It's like that part in Eyes of Ember when she's starting to understand some of the language. She says, love what? Protect what? And because that's the only words that she understands, but she doesn't remember the rest of it. I mean, I have all of the translations on my computer in a file because, as I've said, we've taken the time to professionally translate them and get them correct so that they're not just gibberish like I guess they were before, which was never my intent. But now, in a lot of ways, I don't think I'm going to go back and add them in. I know a lot of people who have foreign languages, they do. Language and then in parentheses what it means. But once again, I mean, Jocelyn doesn't understand that. Jocelyn wouldn't be able to write that in. If you notice, and if you've read Scorched Treachery, when you go through it, both Wynne and Ilian speak Czech. So when Czech is said, they will automatically translate it for you or repeat what it is in English, or it'll be a word that won't need to be translated because you'll understand within the context. A lot of those are yes, which is A-N-O, ano, I think is how it's pronounced, and no, because you kind of understand just based on the context as to what they're saying. But they do. If you really watch, as you read through that book, Ilian will say something in Czech and Drummond will translate for him. Like, he'll repeat it back to him. So in that sense, it's not necessarily that the language is untranslated. It's more of these characters are speaking Czech all the time in these books. And by having these loan words in there that are automatically translated, it becomes more of an influx into being lost in that world. I really believe that when you put translations in parentheses, that a lot is lost on it. As I said, I mean, I'm always open if people say, well, what does he say? I mean, I'll pull up my translations and pull them out. And at some point, I might put them in the back of the books. But because I'm a purist and because of how I view things, I mean, it's just in my mind, it's not necessarily necessary. Now, the plan is actually to make a big ol' website just for Imdalind. It's actually there, imdalind.com, and it's really not put together very well. But I think when I actually get the time to focus on that website and spend some time in it, then I'll put the Czech translations there. Also, if you search on Facebook for Imdalind discussion group, I'm in there all the time. I mean, I'm probably like stalk the conversations in there, and everyone who's in there knows it. But if you have a specific question, I mean, we talk about the Czech all the time. But just for reference, I don't think it's that you're missing anything or that you're not understanding the true translation. It's like in Soul Flame. And if you haven't read Soul Flame, maybe skip forward to the end of this video. When Ilian and Jocelyn have their fight, and Ilian just berates her in Czech. That is not necessary for anyone to understand, just because she doesn't understand it. But what she does understand is that she shouldn't have said what she said, and she feels that heartbreak. And Ilian understands that he shouldn't have said what they said. And I think the fact that he goes off in a language that he knows that she doesn't understand, whereas every other time when he speaks that language to her, it's always in love, or it's in respect, or it's in something that, as in Eyes of Ember, when he gives her the shoes, it's something that he desperately wants to say, but cannot. And in a lot of ways, that's what his language is to him with Jocelyn. It's a way to communicate with her and tell her things that he believes in his heart that he can't say otherwise. So going back, feel free to translate. Feel free to message me. Feel free. I mean, I'll try to get it up on the Imdalind website. But know that when you read it the first time, it's not a necessity to understand. Because I think it's vital to feel a world and a story. And with Jocelyn telling the story, and with Jocelyn not understanding the language, I think pulling yourself out to try to understand something that isn't necessary kind of detracts from that possibility. I think that makes sense. In my head, it makes sense. You're feel free to disagree with me. I mean, it's okay. I think everyone has their own opinion, and that's just mine. Now, I was going to say something else about the Czech, but I completely spaced it, which is normal for me. I kind of get lost when I start talking about Ilian and Jocelyn. Sometimes my brain just goes, oh, and floats away. That's what it was. Dawn of Ash, the next book, the last book, because I guess Wynne and Tom's novella will be the next one, which I'm hoping to keep as a novella. I hope I don't get carried away and write a whole book. We'll see. But Dawn of Ash, by about halfway through that book, Jocelyn will understand Czech completely, and there won't be any more middle grounds. Now, while Soul Flame took place in a matter of days, Dawn of Ash takes place in about a few months. So there's a lot of time switch there. Soul Flame had to take place so quickly just because of what was happening and where the story was developing to. So, I'm rambling. I do that a lot. All right, so Czech translations. That's why I don't give them, because it's in first person and Jocelyn does not understand Czech, and I'm a purist like that. So, if you have any further questions, email me. Thanks for reading and for loving my stories. And I'm sorry, I actually got a comment as to why my wall is dirty from the last video. This is a chalkboard wall. We have the chalkboard paint in our dining room, so my kids color on it when they're waiting for dinner. All right, so there we go. 2 questions in one. Go to get some good reading in, fellows.